Today on the MrMaple Show podcast, Tim and Matt count down the top 25 rare plants of 2024. Customer's choice.
Konnichiwa, y'all, and welcome to the MrMaple Show. Guys, today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite plants, rare plants, the top 25 rare plants of 2024 Customer Choice Awards here on MrMaple. So these are the rare plants that sold the most. Now, if you go to MrMaple.com, you'll see a whole section there of rare plants right there. Tons of weird and unique stuff. We do a lot of outside-the-box stuff, not just maples. If you go in that section, you'll find all kinds of interesting plants from azaleas, stewardias, hydrangeas, all kinds of things. Now, you won't see dogwoods in this category, or ginkgos, or conifers, because we already did a list breaking down the top sales plants of those, so definitely check those out.
We also did our top 75 maples of 2024 as well. So if you're into these top lists, definitely go through and check out to see what our best selling items were of 2024. Guys, we're going to jump right into it. For our number 25, top 25 rare plants of 2024, we've got Hamamelis ex intermedia Jelena.
Now, I've actually been to Arboretum Calmoot where this was found. Really cool arboretum. We went there with the Maple Society. I believe it was in 2011. I'd have to look. Absolutely amazing place. Lots of great maples, lots of great witch hazels. Jelena, one of the very best. I mean, this one is one of the most striking witch hazels. It's popular all over the world, and it's on our list for top sales because of that. This one has a beautiful calyx. It's got a purplish red calyx, but it's got that orange appeal to it. So you've got that calyx that's really on fire. That's the center of the witch hazel bloom. And you got all those crazy tassel flower coming off that. That's normally the flower. And those are bold orange with that dark purplish red calyx.
Now, if you don't know anything about witch hazels, they bloom during those winter months in the late January, early spring time frame. And so they're one of the most unique trees because they give a blooming interest when not many other items are blooming in the garden. And Jelena is one of those trees that is just immaculate with that bright orange color. The overall appearance is a bright orange from a distance. And the blooms look like little spiders just dangling off of every branch. Little just string blooms, which are pretty amazing. This selection, like Matt mentioned, was found by the former owner of Calmoot Arboretum, Robert DeBalder, named after his wife, Jelena. And to me, this is one of the best witch hazels that's ever been introduced for its blooming. It's striking with a bold orange out there in the landscape and really brightens up a lot of spaces. For most witch hazels, you want to give them some morning sun to really get the most blooming and protection from the hot afternoon sun to make that foliage look good late in the season.
These are going to work zones 5 through 8 and provide great winter interest, typically around 10 foot in 10 years. Witch hazel is just so important to the winter garden. I mean, you can really provide, so much interest going on in February when everything's a little bit more bland. Absolutely beautiful blooms on this. I absolutely love it. Great plant, and one I think you should add to your garden. If you're not familiar with witch hazels, it's definitely one to start out with.
It won the Royal Horticultural Society Award of Garden Merit in 1993.
It's been around a minute. All right, guys, coming in here at number 24, we've got one of my favorite plants of all time. You guys, we talk about this one a lot. At number 24, we've got Stewardia pseudocamellia pewter. This is a silver blue leaf Stewardia. Absolutely love this one. I feel like it's one of the most next level plants we do. This one, it just has the coolest sheen of glossy swirlness on top of that Stewardia leaf. So you're already getting bark interest like a crepe myrtle with a Stewardia. You're already getting blooms like a camellia with a Stewardia. You're already getting great fall color, almost like a maple with Stewardia. And now you're getting this foliage interest on this one. I absolutely love pewter. It's the first Stewardia I planted in my garden. I love it. I have one in my yard. Just absolutely admire the plant every time I'm out there and it's in leaf. I think it's one of the funnest ways to add just odd colors to the garden.
I mean, this is a color that we don't find in Japanese maples on the foliage. You don't get that silver blue sheen on any maple like you do with pewter. It's very distinctive. It's got a good upright structure. That bark interest gives you good year-round interest in the winter landscape. It's hard to beat a Stewartia when it gives you 4 seasons of interest, and so it goes so well in the Japanese maple garden. But the fact that this gives you unique foliage as well really takes Stewartia pseudocamellia pewter over the top.
Yeah, these are going to work zones 4 through 8. You want to give them some shade in the hotter zones, typically around 12 to 15 feet in that 15-year period kind of range. Just a beautiful specimen. I absolutely love this. Again, there's so many great things to like about this. I would say, normally if the people pick out a Stewartia pseudocamellia for the blooms, I think the blooms are great on this, but they're probably about the 4th or 5th thing I like about this tree. Absolutely love it. It is absolutely phenomenal.
And I know you mentioned the fall color, but that orange to red fall color is top notch. I know that at Buckholtz Nursery, Talon Buckholtz had taken photos of just the fall color to show off how great the fall color was on it, not even focusing on the silver blue color in the springtime. It's that dynamic in the fall as well. Next level plant, if you don't have one, we try to make these available all the time on MrMaple.com. Many of these items, if they're currently sold out, you can sign up for weekly emails on MrMaple.com. They're going to typically be released through our 10 at 10s on Tuesdays or Thursdays. We release 20 trees at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mr. Maple. But you can also go to each specific individual cultivar and click Notify Me, put your email address in, and we'll notify you when these trees become available again.
Now, coming in here at number 23, we've got a hydrangea, Macrophylla Miss Sayori. This is a dark foliage hydrangea. Going to work zones 5B through 9. Guys, if you just planted the trees on this list, you'd have a pretty darn good garden. I think Miss Sayori next to pewter with Jelena, that's a pretty interesting contrast there. Absolutely love this plant. Now this one is so next level. The foliage is the darker color, so you get this darker foliage. You also get this multicolored flower, so you get this white and pink flower. Absolutely amazing over top of that darker red foliage. It's one of those hydrangeas that even when it's not blooming has something special for you.
Yeah, it won the 2014 Plant of the Year at the Chelsea Flower Show. And for a hydrangea, this one just tops the cake. I mean, it is amazing. It is
tops the cake. New expression there.
It does. It tops the cake. You ever seen those cake toppers?
There's an expression, it takes the cake. Tim normally really changes that one. Tim normally changes that expression to it bakes the cake. That was the one he used to argue was the legitimate. That one bakes the cake.
Hey, it's like the best cake topper.
Tim kind of comes up with his own Timisms.
I do. But
it's a cake topper.
Miss Sayori was bred by a Japanese breeder, Ryoguchi Iri, named after his fiancée, Miss Sayori. And it's hard to beat this one because it has a variegated bloom. The blooms are double, and then you get dark foliage on top of that. And so all the way around with Miss Sayori, it's a game changer. Every aspect of this selection is amazing. You want to make sure you give Miss Sayori good drainage, plant it where it's got great drainage. Often overwatering can be an issue for the selection. But once you get this established or grow this as a container plant, this is an amazing hydrangea, 3 to 4 feet in height and width in 10 years. Fits in a lot of places for people and gives them dynamic colors, especially on those blooms. I'm telling you, those blooms are next level when you have the white interior with a pink trim on each and every bloom, and then you get all the bloom clusters together to create that bigger bloom. It's simply amazing.
I really like this one in a big pot because you can put this one in a container. You've already got the foliage interest going on. Now you got the bloom interest. You can create a perfect kind of container planter just with Miss Sayori. Now coming here at number 22, we've got our first variegated Japanese redbud hazel on the list. Guys, this thing's dope. You need to get you one if you don't have one. Ina Nishiki. Absolutely love this one. We bring it back a lot. Now, these are very shrub-like. They're going to grow very much in that 4 to 6 foot wide, 4 to 6 foot tall kind of size range. Beautiful plant. Going to work zones 5 through 9. Another Japanese plant that's a perfect pairing with Japanese maples. But one of my favorite things to pair this with, I've talked about a lot in our 10 at 10s. I love pairing the Japanese redbud hazel with some of those really cool redbuds. So you can put this next to things like Rising Sun, Hearts of Fire, Flamethrower, and you're going to get a smaller, denser shrub form, but I think it really complements the colors of some of those really popular redbuds.
Now, the redbud hazels bloom in a similar time frame as many of those ex intermedia witch hazels we were talking about, that late winter, early spring time frame, and you have a similar bloom to a witch hazel as well. You get this red sort of spider-like blooms on Inanishki. And then after those blooms drop, spring's happening, and then you get these variegated leaves that are bluish green with that creamy white edging to it. It's a next level shrub out there in the landscape, giving you good variegation. To me, this is a really unique selection from Japan that really hasn't hit its stride in popularity yet. And I think the more people see it and how easy it is to use, how they can use this in the garden, I think it's become more popular.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful plant in every single season. That variegation is really nice. You could even get in the fall color a deep red, like a bold deep red with some of that variegation striation still going on in there. So you can kind of see the separation between the variegation and still really cool, super next level. Again, a plant I don't think enough people are utilizing, even though we've sold a lot of them this year. It's on the list. I definitely think it could gain popularity.
Okay, coming in at number 21, I'm going to struggle on the species, so I'm just going to go with the common name. We've got Star Showers Variegated Virginia Creeper. This looks like, in all intents and purposes, it looks, for a lot of people, like variegated poison ivy. It doesn't make you itch, though. And it crawls across the ground, gives you amazing variegation where you have often more white on each and every leaf than you do green. Splotched variegation for our maple people out there. It's almost like a Rita Nonishki style on a Virginia creeper.
Yeah,
and,
also known as Star Showers. So that's kind of the trademark name on that one.
Yeah, and the cultivar name is Monham. Horrible name on that, but most regular cultivar names are horrible whenever you have a trademark attached. But it is just this really nice creeping Virginia creeper. I first saw this at the J.C. Rouston Arboretum, and I said, man, we're going to have to be able to get this tree, get this vine in production. It is a vine, so it will creep across the ground, as the name Virginia creeper talks about. But if you do have some wood, it may actually start going more vining and attached to that as well.
Yeah, these are going to work zones 4 through 9. Just a great plant. Again, I remember seeing those and just really just being in love with the color on this. That swirling style variegation, it almost has like the mix of variegations. You also, to make a maple comparison, it's got a little bit of a Rita Nonishki style swirling, and it's got a little bit of Ukigumo spottedness to it. So it's got some of that sand dust variegation as well. Very unique looking leaf, irregular shapes, very showy. So this is one that complements a lot of the maples very well. And not surprised, but I am surprised to see a Virginia creeper this high up on our list. All right, guys, coming here at number 20, we've got our first azalea to make the cut. We've got Joga. This is a beautiful Satsuki azalea that's going to work zone 6 through 9.
Now, Satsuki azaleas are awesome because they're small, compact, and large blooms. This one is 3 feet in 10 years. A lot of these azaleas, we almost made a top 20 for top azalea list because the azaleas are really starting to put up numbers. We've been gaining more popularity each and every year with our azaleas. Y'all, this one is one that blooms during those summer months, and it has a white bloom to it, like this white pink bloom with a darker pink purple eye to it. So you've got this really nice sort of blush, the spot there in the center of the bloom. Really dense, compact. The Satsuki azaleas are some of the ones that are really popular for bonsai as well because they're dense, compact habit. That summer blooming with those large blooms just add a lot to it.
Beautiful flower to this one. I mean, it really is a showstopper. You get that kind of like splotched pink red going on in the eye of that. It's just really something next level. Beautiful plant though too, easy to grow. Typically 3 foot tall in 10 years, so not a giant one.
And guys, coming at number 19, we have another Satsuki azalea. They're really starting to put up those numbers here, like I mentioned. We're talking about Suki no Shimo. This is an azalea that has cupped foliage that cups upwards. And to me, it gives a good texture on the Satsuki azalea. Makes a great bonsai. Many of our photos on our website are by one of our friends, John O. Lee, down there in Alabama, who has taken Suki no Shimo and turned it into a bonsai.
We go down and film in his garden.
We do. We should probably do that next time we're down there in the Mobile area. And this one has this really, really gorgeous pink blushed blooms to it that are just outstanding.
I like the foliage on this one. It's obvious to see why this one's so cool for bonsai. Going to work zone 7 through 9. We compare it to the Shishigashira of azaleas. If you're a maple fan, I like to make a lot of maple comparisons for our people here on our channel. It's got that cupped up Japanese maple look to it, almost like a Shishigashira. It's got that twisted look to it. typically 3 to 4 feet tall in 10 years. I mean, the foliage is what's so cool about this one. I mean, the bloom's great, but the foliage on this one is small, it's cupped, it's next level, and it just looks really, really good in a container.
And it blooms in that mid to late spring to early summer time frame. And for a Satsuki azalea, this one has extremely large blooms. The blossoms are simply amazing on this one. So it's not just the foliage, but when this is in full bloom, sometimes you can't see the foliage. And so you give a dynamic color with that pink blushed color on those large blooms.
All right, guys, coming in here at number 18, we've got an Azalea Nucio's Wild Cherry. Now, this is a cherry pink flowering Satsuki azalea. Going to work zone 6 through 9, 3 to 4 feet in 10 years. Really just next level, though. This one's one of the more popular for that pink red color. It's a bold red that just really shows out.
Yeah, Nucio's Nursery is one of those popular nurseries that recently had just sold, and no one's going to be producing the rare azaleas like they were anymore. It's crazy, but this is that pink red, and to me, this is like that.
We are. I'm going to keep producing it.
Yeah, but to me, this is one of those like fiery red kind of colors when I look at it.
Oh, it's next level.
And it has those 2 to 3 inch blooms to it that are outstanding. As a dense, compact Satsuki azalea, it's one of the best blooming red dwarf compact Satsuki azaleas out there. And the Satsuki azaleas are probably one of our most popular selections because they have those larger blooms. They bloom in that summer time frame, and their smaller, compact form makes them fit in so many spaces. But I honestly think the number one reason people get Satsuki azaleas often from Mr. Maple is when they see these bonsai photos of what is possible, then they think, hey, I too can try to start getting into this. And hopefully we're encouraging some people to try and attempt out to try to do bonsai and do some of these, amazing cultivars of Satsuki azaleas as bonsai.
All right, guys, coming in here at number 17, we've got an awesome plant. It's Edgeworthia. We've got the Chinese paper bush plant. Absolutely love Edgeworthia. They are so next level in the garden. I have a whole Edgeworthia collection. Tim and I's goal is to make all of the different cultivars. This is just the straight species of Chrysantha, but guys, they are so cool. These are going to work zone 7 through 10, but that's really not true because we're here in zone 6B, and we go by the national rankings on this one, but I have about 10 of these next to a rental house my parents have, and I have them set up close to the house, and they do great. They're in a high oak canopy here in zone 6B. Absolutely love them. Typically 6x6 in 10 years. You can separate these from the root structures. So if you get little baby start at the base, kind of like hostas, you can just split them away, which is a great way to multiply your Edgeworthia. I absolutely love them though. They're malleable, they're interesting. And again, it's another one of those winter blooming plants that gives you some just fun color going on in the winter, and they smell awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you have the white on the exterior of the bloom, the yellow on the actual bloom face itself. The bloom clusters sort of hang downward, and they're so fragrant that you can smell them from a distance in the landscape and garden. The Chinese paper bushes create these nice little shrubs that can grow well in dry shade areas. And that's one of the reasons why this is so useful, is because many people are gardening in that dry shade garden. That means it goes well in that Japanese maple garden. But I have seen Edgeworthia do well in a more sunny spots as well. And they've really impressed me on how much heat they can handle and sun they can handle here in the south.
I've seen some in the sun in Colombia, which was crazy. And, we say up to 8, but man, those things are growing great down in Nacogdoches at Stephen F. Austin. There's some beasts down there. So push zones of these. We list them a certain way, but I certainly am growing them successfully here in zone 6 for over 10 years now.
Now, the leaves themselves look very rhododendron-like, but they're very soft to the touch. So they're very different in that respect. The branching, it's called the Chinese paper plant. It has a very woody-like structure, and they're very malleable. When we were down at SFA Gardens, Dr. Creech had told some of his students that he'd heard that when he was in China, this was called the Chinese love knot plant. And if you look at SFA Gardens down there in Nacogdoches, almost all of their Edgeworthias now are tied into knots.
See, I don't believe it's the kids. I think it's Dr. Creech going around telling the story. I think Dr. Creech loves that story, and he goes and ties them all in knots every day while he's walking around. And he just keeps telling that same story and blaming it on the students.
Now, the thing is that it doesn't affect the overall health of the Edgeworthia, and that knot will actually grow with age. just like someone's love. And so that's why it's
totally
called
Dr. Creech. Come on. Those kids aren't that poetic. That's a Dr. Creech thing.
No, but that is one of the things that he tells them that from his stories in China about.
If you break up, you can just go trim it out or it's forever.
All right, guys. Coming at number 16, we got Hamamelis virginiana Little Prospect.
Now, am I wrong or was this number 1 last year?
I think it was
number 1 last year. New number 1.
So Little Prospect is a Hamamelis virginiana. The Virginiana witch hazels, they're native to North America. They're actually native here in Western North Carolina, and they bloom in the fall. And so they've got those same spider-like blooms, but more yellow on this native selection. And Little Prospect was found in Tennessee, and it's got a perfect form, perfect leaves that look great late in the season, can handle a lot of heat. But the real kicker is Little Prospect is variegated.
Yeah, this thing's beautiful, guys. It's going to work zones 3 through 8. I love the style variegation. It's got a dark green eye to a bold lime green yellow exterior. It is really showstopper. Now, it's going to have yellow blossoms. Again, Tim mentioned that the blooms are typically late fall, early winter. Man, this thing is so beautiful, guys. It is a next level native plant. People use the term nativar for native plants that are cultivars. This one is every bit as showy as Japanese selections. Like, it almost doesn't do it justice because people kind of have a connotation associated with that of like, oh, it's a certain thing. Guys, this thing is so cool. It is like, it's almost like the geisha gone wild of witch hazels. Like, it's got it all going on. It's got crazy variegation. It will stand up against any woody ornamental with this much high drama intensity. It's going to bring a ton of color to your garden. When this thing leaves out in the early spring, I could care less if it blooms or not. It is absolutely beautiful.
All right, guys, coming at number 15, we've got one of my favorite azaleas, and this is Azalea Amelia Rose. It's a zone 6B through 9 azalea. It's a Dr. Eugene Aromi hybrid. Now, Dr. Eugene Aromi, he really worked on bringing heat tolerance and double flowers to a lot of azaleas, these evergreen azaleas. And this particular one gives you this very nice, amazing lavender, rose-like bloom that is spectacular. It's named after one of his granddaughters. And it's next level. I mean, it's a hybrid with an indica and a cold-tolerant azalea, creating this taller selection and these huge 3 to 4 inch blooms that look like little roses out there on this azalea.
Yeah, it's a double, so it has that interior like double bloom, and that's kind of why it looks so rose-like. I don't know how to describe the color. I mean, pink lavender, it is next level color. It is intensely pink, intensely kind of purplish lavender. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a beautiful color. Absolutely love this one. You can see why it's so popular. Typically 6x6 in 10 years for us, so it fills out to a nice little mid-size there. Beautiful plant, though. Amelia Rose, always a fan favorite here at Mr. Maple.
Now, there are lots of different types of azaleas out there. Whenever you're talking about the rhododendron indica hybrids, they get a little taller and they can handle more sunlight and heat than many of the other azaleas. So if you're in the South or anywhere else in a zone 6B through 9 that can really, handle more sunlight, this thing's going to be loaded with blossoms, almost similar to like those Kurume azaleas.
All right, coming in here at number 14, we've got another azalea, Momo no Haru. This is a bright pink Satsuki azalea. Another one that is really, really nice, really choice for bonsai. Going to work zone 6 through 9. This one is incredibly small, though. Typically 1 to 2 feet tall, 4 foot wide kind of size in 10 years. So it keeps a really nice compact habit to it. Beautiful plant. I mean, this one, the foliage is nice, but the flower is nice, but I like that compact, dense nature to it.
The bloom itself is very round, and it's rounder and fatter at the top, and then gets more narrow, creating some divisions in the bloom as it goes in. Gives it a very cartoon-esque feel of what you think of an azalea. It's very attractive for that reason, especially in containers and for bonsai. But that color, that rich pink color, is outstanding. Satsuki azaleas, like I said, they're one of our favorites. This one was actually brought to Brookside Gardens and introduced to the United States from Japan by our good friend Barry Yinger in the late 1970s. And to me, it's so cool whenever we see all of our friends especially someone like Barry Yinger, who has made his stamp on plants and brought so many selections to the United States with all of his travels around the world. And
we're still going to get him on the podcast.
We got to get him on the podcast. Right now
he's in Africa. He doesn't have enough signal.
Yeah, he doesn't have enough signal. We already had him on there. Momonoharu, though, translates as spring of peach, which is interesting to me. But that blooms in that mid-late springtime, early summer, and amazing selection to grow in a small, compact form. Where's the bonsai?
All right, another hydrangea here on the list at number 13. We've got Hydrangea Macrophylla Love. This is a double blooming hydrangea. Typically going to work here zones 5 through 9. Beautiful flowers to this one. I mean, it is a really nice, by the same people who bred Miss Sayori. So same creator there. Love, really next level.
Yeah, Ryoji Erie has bred so many amazing doubles. This one is more of that baby pink color, with you give it more lime. I have seen some people give it more acid and will actually turn it a little bluer. But those double pink blooms are next level. And when you say double on a hydrangea, it really looks like a triple or something because it has so many blossom petals in there. It is simply amazing. Now, the interesting thing is I think Miss Sayori may have beat this if we had more available on MrMaple.
I always let people know on these lists, they're kind of based on our availability. So, if we had something that sold out really quickly, but we didn't have more of it, it may put up pretty big numbers, but it might not have came back. Where there may be a plant that it would have beaten had they all had the same numbers to start with. So these are just the ones that sold the most. That is contingent on inventory for sure. Some things sold out quicker. Like Miss Sayori is very popular. If we had an infinite amount of that, it may have been at the top of the list.
But this is one of the best pink blooming hydrangeas because you get that double bloom to it, which is so amazing. Now, these double blooms are also great cut flowers, so you can cut these flowers and bring them into the house to extend your garden and bring it inside.
All right, guys, moving along at number 12, we've got a Fothragilla. This is Blue Shadow, really next level plant. Blue Shadow brings that deciduous blue splash to the garden. This is going to work zones 4 through 8. Absolutely showstopper. Typically 4 to 5 foot tall, about equally as wide in 10 years. Very shrub-like, very dense, very multi-stemmed. This one's just gorgeous, man. I love the color. You get a lot of what I like about pewter. It's less swirling, but you get that frosted blue appearance to this, which it was super next level when you can find that in a deciduous plant. I mean, it looks amazing with maples. It looks great with anything else on this list because you're adding a blue frosted color to the landscape. That's just very rare to see in nature. So actually have a Fothragilla that has this. Now, Fothragilla also bloom, but again, I could care less about the bloom when I've got all this blue foliage going on. This thing is amazing.
Now, the fuzzy white balls that are above Fothragilla Blue Shadow do give some good color contrast. They blooms in that early spring time frame, which is pretty special out there as well. Blue Shadow, though, it's a shrub-like tree to put out there in the landscape, give you that blue, silver blue color, and it multiplies from the base and creates this really nice shrub in the landscape and garden. So it's easy to figure out how to use this. Again, we can give that blue color in the maple garden that you can't normally get with a Japanese maple with something like Blue Shadow. And it is a native. I mean, this is a native selection, so it's a nativar. So it's great for the birds, great for the bees. They all love the blooms on Fothragilla. And this is one of those selections that is fairly drought resistant as well. So it's easy for many people to grow.
I could care less about the fuzzy balls. You can keep those for the birds and the bees. For me, it's all about that foliage. This thing's amazing. I love that blue foliage. I think it is so next level. You could put this next to some of your most basic Japanese maples. I mean, think of Blue Shadow next to just Crimson Queen. The color contrast, the interest, it's amazing. So grab you one for your deciduous garden, especially if you're a maple collector. It's a great way to add unique color to the landscape.
Next up, we've got at number 11, we've got Clethra barbonervis Takeda Nishiki. This is a variegated Japanese Clethra. Now, Clethra are very popular. There's some, common forms that you'll find that are really popular out there that because they have really elongated white blooms. They get bark almost like a crepe myrtle as they age, so they give you some unique interest as a shrub in the garden. Takeda Nishiki was a variegated selection that was found in the wild by Takeda-san in Shikoku, which is Japan's smallest island, found just growing in the wild. And so you get this amazingly variegated Japanese Clethra that still gives you the blooms, still gives you the bark, but it's got that variegation as well.
I was so tripped out walking through, the native habitat there in Japan, walking through the woods in Japan, and seeing Clethra just growing. I didn't see anything like Takeda Nishiki, but just seeing Clethra growing there in the landscape, and then to have a variegated form of that. Such a cool plant already.
Now, one of our photos on MrMaple.com of Takeda Nishiki is at World Maple Park. Masao Shiano had a Takeda Nishiki in his back secret area.
You gotta have it.
He was so excited about this plant because it is next level. At World Maple Park, the guy who's got over 1,000 cultivars, and he had this in a container back there in his secret stash in his back greenhouse.
I get it. This thing is so next level. I do recommend a little late day shade, especially in the hotter areas. They're going to work zones 5 through 9, so anywhere basically you're growing Japanese maples. Give this variegation some protection from the hot afternoon sun, typically around 6 foot in 10 years. So next level. I mean, this thing is so next level. Again, I've said it a bunch, but you could put a lot of these plants that are on this list together and have a pretty darn good garden. Takeda Nishiki, it brings the high drama. The variegation is super choice. I mean, it can get that floating cloud whiteness to it. You just get this really unique color going on. Contrast Japanese maples really well, and that's a big reason why it's a top seller here on Mr. Maple.
Guys, coming at number 10, we actually have a deciduous azalea, and this is Azalea Pat Ryan. This is a Dr. Eugene Aromi introduction of a deciduous azalea, and it's really unique because as the buds unfurl in that spring time frame, you get buds that are red, and then as they open up, they open to a peach with a little bit of a yellow splotch in them. And so up close, you get a really nice bicolor effect on this azalea. From a distance, it gives an effect of an orange azalea from a distance. Now, a lot of these azaleas, they're going to get about 6 feet in height, by 4 foot in width in 10 years. And you really got to make sure that you give them plenty of organic matter when you're planting them and good drainage. That's the key with native azaleas and the deciduous azaleas, good drainage and organic matter when planting.
This one's especially fragrant. It's going to work zones 5 through 9. Typically around 4 foot in 10 years, just a showstopper. I really like it. The smell's really nice as well. It's a hybrid, so you're going to have that deciduous appeal to it, but it does have some of the more interesting characteristics as well. Just all around a great azalea to be growing. Really interested to see it break our top 10 here today.
I know, that's pretty striking. Coming at number 10, coming at number 9, we have Styrex japonicus Evening Light. That is a next level red-leafed Japanese snowbell.
Yeah, I love this plant. The foliage is super dark. Just makes a perfect contrast with the things. I talk about that a lot. I'm a big foliage guy, if you hadn't noticed. The foliage is more important to me than the blooms on this one, too, because that foliage is super dark. It's one of the darkest things in the entire landscape. And for that reason, it contrasts so well. I mean, you put this next to Takeda Nishiki. Oh, my goodness. This is going to work zones 5 through 9. Beautiful bell-like flowers to them. So you get that little interesting tassel flower going on in the early spring. It's a selection from Boscoop. Absolutely love this plant. 4 to 5 foot in 10 years. They get pretty nice, though. I mean, I've been really impressed with this as a pairing with Japanese maples as well. Tim's going to say to pair it with yellow, of course, but it's so dark that you can pair this with pretty much anything and get a lot of color contrast. I mean, this even contrasts with a lot of the red Japanese maples extremely well.
Yeah, and that dark foliage actually shows the white blossoms extremely well. Styrex japonicus, the Japanese snowbells, are heavily underutilized. There's a lot of small shrubs that we try to make available at Mr. Maple, like the Stewardias, the Japanese snowbells, and just unique things that you don't find very frequently. The fact that this one's got that dark foliage makes it so easy to use in the landscape, but you still get everything you love about a Japanese snowbell with that white blossom that just hangs downward, looks like little bells out there, gives good fragrance in the garden. To me, this is it was a game changer when they found this for an upright Japanese snowbell, because foliage interest is king. It's there spring, summer, and fall, and then the blooms, they're just an awesome addition.
All right, y'all, coming in here at number 8, we've got an Azalea Hino Crimson, a red flowering Karume azalea. These are going to work zones 6 through 8. One of the best reds. I mean, it's a fiery red. It's really flashy. Again, these are popular for bonsai, but you can do a lot of great things with them in the landscape as well. Typically 2 to 3 feet in height, 4 to 5 foot in width. makes a perfect azalea for most people. As you can see, coming in here in the top 10.
Now, they're called Kurume azaleas because they were developed in the city of Kurume. They were often, one of the top Kurume breeders was actually a samurai. Hino Crimson is one of those ones that just gives you some really nice crimson red color, but it's extremely cold tolerant as well, so it performs well zone 6 through 8 in an evergreen azalea. It is extremely showy when it blooms. The blooms cover almost every single part of the selection, so much you can't even see the leaves. And for a red selection, this one's outstanding. It's also really popular. It's a really popular selection because you can actually bring this into a cold frame and force it into bloom at different times of the year as well, which is really unique. And that's one of the reasons why this one also is often used as bonsai, because they can force it into a bloom whenever they're actually going into a bonsai show or something like that. It's easier to be able to force this selection into bloom to really make it put on the best show possible during a bonsai exhibit.
I like to think of like a 1700s era samurai, and he's pruning his bonsai with a sword.
A samurai sword?
Yeah, he's just trimming the bonsai, making minute little details. Just
All right, guys, coming at number 7, we've got another azalea. It's a Satsuki azalea that's quite unique, very different. One of my favorite azaleas of them all. We're talking about Chijuho.
Chijuho, zone 7 through 9. Beautiful tree, beautiful shrub. I shouldn't say tree, beautiful bush of a plant. Love these for an azalea. You know, the form's not going to be tree-like. The form's going to be more like 3 feet by 4 foot wide in that 10-year span. Beautiful flowers on this one. The name actually translates as treasure of activities.
And the reason this one is such a treasure is it blooms at the same time frame as many of the Satsuki azaleas, that mid to late spring, early summer time frame. But you will continue to find blossoms on Chijuho all the way until about November. And the thing that's really unique is you start out with those orange-red blossoms that are very spider-like on this bloom, which are very special. But as you get later into the season, those blossoms turn almost green. And so you get this treasure of activities with Chijuho.
All right, guys, coming in here at number 6.
We got a space for activities?
Yeah, space for activities. Coming here at number 6, we've got the Rising Sun Redbud, guys. This one's won by our friends Ray and Cindy Jackson. Just good buddies of ours. We've known them for a long time in the trade. Typically 10 to 15 foot in 10 foot in width in a 10-year span, making it a beautiful upright tree. These are going to work zones 5 through 9. You know, redbuds have gotten so popular. We're going to talk a lot more about redbuds because there's several here at the top of the list. They've gotten so popular that people almost forget this is also a nativar. Like, it's crossed out of that stigma of being a native cultivar into just being one of the more popular landscape trees. So Rising Sun, one of the ones that really kicked the party off for the redbud craze. We still do a ton of them here at Mr. Maple. Beautiful yellows and oranges. Reminds me a little bit of like a moonrise little kind of characteristics. You can get that apricot over top of the yellow sometimes too.
Yeah, you get that sort of apricot, that sort of peachy orange on the new growth, maturing to that yellow. You want to give it plenty of sunlight to peak up the yellow colors, and the new growth really shines especially well with the selection. This was found as a chance seedling by Ray Jackson, and I'm telling you, it is next level. It's one of the best yellows of any of those redbuds. Now, redbuds, we often focus on their heart-shaped foliage, but they do have blooms, as the name implies, redbud, in the early spring on the stalk of the tree before the leaves actually come out. So you get a nice bloom interest in the late winter, early spring on redbuds as well. Great trees. And now there's a lot of redbuds that have good foliage interest to go in your Japanese maple garden.
All right, guys, we're into the top 5 of the rare plants of 2024. Definitely go check out our rare plant section. Mr. Maple, more than just Japanese maples. You'll have to check us out over there. There's a ton of great plants. I mean, you'd be surprised some of the numbers some of these sold. Definitely a lot of these plants would even be on our maple list for yearly sales. So some really interesting ones there. Coming in here, breaking the top 5, Hydrangea paniculata Yuki Gasho. Now, this is one of my favorite hydrangeas. This is a variegated hydrangea that is so next level, just funky. I mean, I love, again, this one has that almost like sand dust style variegation, so you get those splotches going on. And it can be almost white, especially if you're giving this one some late day shade, some heavy shade. I've had this one just glow in the early spring.
I mean, it's almost white variegated green because you see it's more
green's
white.
the alternate color.
Yeah, you can get more white on the leaves than you can green. This is another selection that was brought in from Japan to the United States by Barry Yinger.
Dude's a legend.
He is. And the paniculatas are neat because the paniculatas are very Lyme resistant, so they can do well out Midwest where some of the other people struggle with some of the other hydrangeas. Hydrangea paniculata grows everywhere well, and they're known for having beautiful white blooms. But this one is so white during the spring, summer with its variegation that it's almost like the foliage is the dynamic thing that you pay attention to, and the blooms are just a nice addition when they come. It is an amazing 6 to 8 foot hydrangea that fits in many people's garden and just gives you some great white color spring, summer, and fall.
All right, guys, number 4, we've got one from our friend Tom Rainey. Go check out our Tom Rainey podcast. He's a breeder here locally at the Fletcher Research Center here from NC State, the Mountain Research Center out here in Fletcher, I should say. Really nice guy, and this plant is next level. You guys ate it up at open house. You guys, it was probably the number 1 seller at open house when we relisted it. So when that one came out, I want to say at our Memorial Day open house, we dropped Carolina Sweetheart, the red bud, Carolina Sweetheart, Cerces canadensis, and man, did those things, it was literally a stampede for the Carolina Sweethearts. The color was so choice at that moment, and I mean, there was a lot of traffic getting those Carolina Sweethearts, getting them out of here. Probably our number 1 seller if you counted just that Memorial Day open house. That was probably the number 1 product bought. We've offered them in good numbers. They have sold out, but been very, very popular for us this year. We've offered it many years ago, but we brought it back. Carolina Sweetheart, going to work zone 6 through 9. So again, a lot of places the Japanese maples work, typically around 15 feet in 10 years. So pretty vigorous, makes a nice upright tree. Guys, the thing about this one is the leaf color. The leaf colors on this are nuts. It's variegated. It's pink, it's green, it's white. It's got some purples and reds going on in there. It's absolutely nuts. If you've seen this one in person, you're going to love it.
Not only do you get the blooms with Carolina Sweetheart that you get with most red buds within the early spring time frame, but in that late May time frame, you have some of the most dynamic foliage that you could possibly have. You've got burgundy, heart-shaped leaves with pink edging that just glows, and it is so attractive. You get some really nice reds at the intersection between the pink and the red that are very bright and intense. During that midsummer time frame, you get a darker color on the interior part of the leaf, some creamy edging, and then the new growth gives you that pink and red again. So it's just constantly putting on lots of colors of new growth with pink, burgundy, red, dark green, cream. It is one of the most colorful red buds that's ever been introduced, and it has a unique form where it's upright and semi-pendulous. So it creates this really nice shrub-like tree out there in the garden.
All right, guys, coming in here at number 3. We're all the way up to number 3. It's our last hydrangea of the list. Guys, we're coming in here with Hydrangea quercifolia, Little Honey. It's the yellow foliage oak leaf hydrangea. These are always popular. They're going to work zones 5B through 9, 3 foot in height, typically in 10 years. Little Honey has that golden yellow foliage, white blooms, makes this one so popular. Really a showstopper when in the landscape. Another one where when you add this to your garden, that color and texture adds so much. That oak leaf hydrangea leaf, that bigger leaf, so next level. And you're adding, golden contrast. So we always talk about the importance of adding yellow to the landscape. Little Honey is a beautiful way to do that. Now, I definitely recommend some late day shade for this one. Just an absolute showstopper in the landscape, though. You put this out next to your Carolina Sweetheart, you will not be disappointed.
Now, Hydrangea quercifolia is a native to North America. It is very heat tolerant. It's easy to grow. This gives you that yellow form in a compact, smaller shape. Because of its yellow color, you're going to make sure you want to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun. But Hydrangea quercifolias are some of my favorite hydrangeas out there in the landscape and garden. They have a little bit thicker foliage that gives good fall color late in the season. So it's one of the best fall color hydrangeas that you can have. Typically getting some really nice fiery oranges and reds in the fall and some just really bright picked up reds on that leaf as well. Little Honey has that small compact shape, but as the name implies, it's got that yellow color. and that yellow color just makes it pair so well out there in the landscape. You know I love the color yellow if you watch our YouTube channel, the Mr. Maple Show. But this does this in a hydrangea, so it gives you some great foliage interest. We're just still talking about leaves. We hadn't even talked about the blooms, and the blooms just have some really nice, large white blooms over top of this as well. All the way around, an amazing selection. Love the hydrangea quercifolias. And Little Honey, it's the best. It tops the cake.
It bakes the cake. I like that. I liked when you said it bakes the cake better. That was way funnier. It bakes the cake.
Yeah, you gotta have the cake. Someone's got to bake it.
It's a real cake show out here, Tim. All right, guys. Coming in here at 1 and 2, we've got a couple of redbuds fighting it out. Can you guess the number 1 spot, guys? We're down to number 2 on our rare plants list for Mr. Maple. Coming in here at number 2, we got another one by Ray and Cindy Jackson, guys. We've got Cersei's canadensis Hearts of Fire redbud. Just an absolute showstopper. Love this plant. Beautiful foliage. I would say one of the things that makes this one stand out is it almost gets so red that the primary colors are a little darker, and so you get more of a bold orange and more of a bold red on this one.
Yeah, you definitely get dark colors on Hearts of Fire, but then you get some apricot colored new growth that is outstanding. And for a great plant to pair this out there with, that Rising Sun we talked about earlier with that bright yellow out there, you get another red bud, similar habit by Ray Jackson as well, with some outstanding color contrast between the two.
Typically around 15 feet, beautiful plant, zone 6 through 9, so it's going to work a lot of places that Japanese maples work. Hearts of Fire is a red bud that you're going to love in the landscape. Now this one is an absolute beauty to pair. That late summer foliage is kind of the best on redbuds, which is crazy. At some point, I'm going to go film with Ray and Cindy Jackson in their garden and in their fields for the redbuds. And the weirdest part about that is some of the most beautiful time to look at redbuds is late July, early August. So it's not really the time we think about gardening, but I think that's sometimes when the redbuds can kind of be at their peak foliage-wise. All that new growth, all that show, absolutely love it. There'll be times when this tree looks bold red with greener, older growth. There'll be times where it looks yellow and orange and red. It goes through a ton of color changes.
What about Ray's ability to name plants? Ray and Cindy, you've got the Rising Sun, which, gives the oranges and the yellows like the Rising Sun. Hearts of Fire, you've got heart-shaped leaves that look like they're on fire. I mean, amazing ability to name plants here. I love when great plants have great names. It's so much easier for people to realize and recognize how beautiful these trees are when you have a name that fits and fits well. A selection of a red bud that I think has become more popular. I think this one was only on the website since about August or September.
Still put up some pretty big numbers.
Put up some really big numbers really quickly.
About half the time of some of these others.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting to see which one battles it out next year with our number 1, which is Cersei's canadensis Flamethrower.
Yeah, Flamethrower. So now the obvious question a lot of people are going to talk about is the differences between these two. I find that Flamethrower next to Hearts of Fire is a little lighter colored. So it's a little bit more fire glow red on the red. It's a little bit more of that light red. It's a little bit more of the lighter yellow. It's a little bit more of the lighter green. So when you look at the two beside each other, Hearts of Fire looks a little more bold and darker to me. And then the Flamethrower tends to be a little bit more pastel colors. It's a little bit more lighter colors. I think the red you get on that's a little bit more of the fire engine red, where the red you get on Hearts of Fire is a little bit more bold, deep red.
And I think Flamethrower gets a little more yellow into it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely lighter colors overall.
And so it has more contrast with the
Hearts of Fire can get so red that it feels like a red tree with all that growth coming off through it. So just beautiful, though. Different trees, different interests to them. Typically around 10 to 15 feet in 10 years. So beautiful habit there, 6 through 9 as well. I like Flamethrower. I like the name to it. They call it Eternal Flame in Europe, which I'm like, where they outlaw flamethrowers. It's like illegal to have a flamethrower.
Yeah, and I think Hearts of Fire has a little more upright structure, where Flamethrower is a little more semi-pendulous, more in that line of the Carolina Sweetheart. Amazing color contrast. These red buds that are coming out are just next level. Flamethrower was a selection that was bred and developed by our friend Dennis Werner at the J.C. Rouston Arboretum. I think we didn't offer Golden Falls in higher numbers this year, which was one of his introductions.
Previously may have been really high up on our list too.
Yeah. And so it's interesting, all the genetics that people have been playing around with. I think a lot of those genetics started originating with that rising sun, with that bright yellow color, and people started playing with it. And then, people found, a weeping red bud, and then a red weeping red bud, and then all these things just started breeding.
I know the first time I saw Flamethrower, oh my gosh, it was like top secret. It was like somebody sent us a photo, and they're like, "This is what he has in the works. Don't share it." it was like the top secret thing. Absolutely love them. Beautiful plants. You can see why it hit number one on our list. People forget it's a native art. People forget this is a native plant. Not that there's a stigma to native plants. Native plants are amazing, but people just think about this as a landscape plant. They don't think about it as a native.
Yeah, and this is a tree, the Flamethrower, gives you those amazing red bud flowers, gives you amazing heart-shaped leaves. It's easy to grow. It probably was one of the things on MrMaple.com that sold out the quickest for when it's being listed, and it's also one of the things that put up the fastest numbers. It is at number one on our list of top rare plants of 2024, but if we included it in our overall list,
it'd have made the top maple list.
It'd have made it on the top 25 maple list for sure with these kind of numbers. It's insane how popular Flamethrower has become. It's one of those items that everyone's seeking, and we try to make it available as much as we can here on Mr. Maple because there's a lot of hype behind it. The colors are outrageous. It's one of the most colorful red buds I've ever seen.
Hey, I own a Flamethrower. I use it sometimes to melt the snow in the driveway. It's pretty awesome. Grab you a Flamethrower today, guys. It's phenomenal. It's often on Mr. Maple. If you see some of these plants, or heard of some of these plants on our website, on our podcast, and you want one and they're not listed, sign up to get notified via email. Now, we put new plants out every Tuesday and Thursday. The first notification is always the 10 at 10 email to let you know what's come back in stock. We always put those out first. And then if something's still available, we'll send you an update notification later to let you know, hey, this one's back. So check out our 10 at 10s. That's the easiest way to find rare plants. A lot more than maples going on Mr. Maple. You guys will be surprised at some of these numbers. I hope you enjoyed this look at behind the curtains, what actually sold the Customer Choice Awards for rare plants on Mr. Maple in 2024. We actually are one of the few nurseries that'll pull the curtain back, show you exactly what we're selling, talk to you about it. And, if there's rare plants here that you don't see that you'd like to see on this list, let us know in the comment section below the YouTube video. We'd love to be offering those plants next year.
Now, we've been working hard on offering unique and interesting hydrangeas here on Mr. Maple, so you'll find a huge selection of hydrangeas. Our azalea collection that we've been offering is outstanding.
And many of those areas have their own category on Mr. Maple because they're so big, they won't be into the rare plants.
Yeah, and so we've been offering so many unique evergreen azaleas and deciduous azaleas on MrMaple.com. We even have some videos where you should go check out if you like azaleas, where we go and hike up to the top of Gregory Bald. We do have a Hooper Bald video as well.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Maple is one of the number one sellers of red buds in America. I doubt many people have offered this many Hearts of Fire and Rising Sun and Carolina Sweethearts
for retail operation.
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty good numbers going out here, guys. One of the easiest sources. I know a lot of people were having a hard time even finding Hearts of Fire. We've made that easy to get.
So our goal is to offer more and unique, interesting, rare plants. If you have a rare plant that you're starting to see or you've heard of that you think we should cover, you can always contact our office and let us know about it through MrMapleQuestions@gmail.com. We're always interested in cool, interesting, rare plants.
Take care.
God bless.
Have a great day.